So we've been around since 2006, and like most of the bands, we've had a few lineup changes. Michael, who was the bass player of the band, left for Sweden in 2011 because he wanted to sort of pursue his professional career there. And it was during this time that we sort of reached out to Narayan, because Narayan was playing for Mindsnare. He was also playing for Extinct Reflections, other metal bands in Bangalore, and it was a perfect fit in terms of sound for us. He was also a great guy to hang out with, so we reached out to him, and he was more than happy to sort of become a permanent member of the band. In fact, the first show that Narayan was a part of was Rockin' India 2011, when we opened for Metallica. So it was quite a big, memorable performance for us, and he seems to be quite lucky for the band. So Jared came into the band actually as a sessions guy. Abhinav wanted to sort of take a break. In fact, we weren't very sure what Abhinav wanted to do. Abhinav took a small break, and Jared was filling in, with shows here and there for the band. When Abhinav sort of decided for sure that he's not going to be part of the band, that's when we asked Jared to become a full-time permanent member. And he brings a lot to the table, because Jared, he's a phenomenal musician. I mean, he's a multi-instrumentalist, and he really knows what the band needs in terms of the drum sound, the drum feel, and the overall, the vibe that we are going for. So Jared joined us a year back, and it was around the same time that we also asked Arjun to join us, because somewhere midway we realized that Suraj was also concentrating on probably more commercial music, and he also had a studio, he also had teaching and stuff going for himself. So we kind of felt that the commitment towards the band wasn't as high. We reached out to Arjun. I in fact spoke to Arjun personally, and I asked him if he was willing to join the band. At first Arjun was quite hesitant, because he had a sort of a day job. He also worked for he worked full time, and he also played for Eccentric Pendulum, so he kind of felt that he couldn't spend enough time with Sanctum. But I think with time he sort of got himself convinced, and was convinced about the fact that Sanctum is going to go forward, and we are planning to take this a little more seriously than before. And that's when he sort of said, yeah, sure, I mean, he's more than happy to join us, and now he's also a full-time member of the band. So yes, that's typically how the three guys joined the band, and now we seem to be a pretty strong and tight outfit.
Are you trying to ask that why are we a lazy band? I mean, yeah, that's for sure. We are definitely lazy. But jokes apart, it's just a time factor, to be honest. And we've all reached a point in our lives where our careers are taking off, and we have a lot of other commitments, and which doesn't always allow us to invest as much time as we would like into the band.
I can actually, blame two things. One, the ethos of the band. I think we have an ingrained principle that if we put out something, it has to be of a very high quality. The expectations from bands, modern bands nowadays, are very high. Not only should the song be very good, the production quality has to be very good as well. And these are all independently produced tracks, right? So we are in a situation or a vicious cycle when even if we write music, we don't have the budgets to sort of ensure that the mixing and mastering is done. And even if we're looking at a music video, we are looking at a top-notch music video, not something just basically in a jam room or in a small shed or something of that sort, because that's done and dusted, and we don't want to do that.
But at the same time, when we do get together, it's about putting out a quality product. We don't believe in cutting corners and doing things just for the sake of it. It just doesn't matter. It's about punching it out there.
We are not in a rat race. This is not a competition, and we believe that the fans should get what they deserve, and that takes time. When I sort of initially conceptualized the song, I told the band that I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to do something which is not the typical mid-tempo, the fast-tempo stuff that Sanctum is known for. I wanted to sort of venture into the slower-paced stuff, only to see if Sanctum could make it work. Initially, the few iterations that I made of the track, I wasn't very happy with. I kind of felt that I should possibly take it in a slightly different direction, which I then ran it past the band and got a couple of ideas from them. And the final product that you see is possibly the fourth or fifth variation of the track.
The slowness of the track demanded that it sounded really huge and gritty, and for that, the obvious choice for us has always been Lasse Lammert of LSD Studios. He just understands the kind of way we want to sound like, and he was able to give us that massive sound that we were looking for. Because and for as a band, it was kind of refreshing as a song, because usually when Chintan writes all the songs, it's pretty fast paced. So it was nice to sort of hear a lot of space within the song, which kind of allowed the vocals to sit in very differently, and allowed us to do a lot of different things that we hadn't tried before.
In terms of production, I mean, it's always been a no-brainer for us. Lasse Lammert has always understood our sound, and we've always sort of felt that going back to him is the right thing to do. I mean, he's supported the band quite a bit, and he's understood the sound, and he's given us what we wanted. This track required something a little more raw, a little more, sort of unprotected, and that's exactly what he's delivered with it. He's given it a very sort of large, epic sound, while also maintaining that sort of organic, nature.
I was pretty exhausted by the end of the night. In fact, even though it was just one song, it took a few hours to get those parts right. It was also about pushing myself to the brink to kind of get the best performance out of me. In fact, the first verse of the song was actually recorded at the end of the day, because we were listening to the recordings, and Chintan was still sitting with me in the studio, and he was like, "You know what, now your voice is really opened up, so let's retake the song." And I'm like, no, I'm tired. But yeah, I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we did those retakes and stuff like that. And we've also vocally, we've tried some new stuff, the chorus is actually like a chant, which is still in English, but it doesn't sound like English, but it's very much inspired by this, almost like a war cry sort of a thing that you would find in bands like Monolith, Death Cult, and if you've checked out the Hellblade 2 trailer, this video game, that soundtrack, that chanty part is done by this band called Hylian. And we were really inspired by those bits and wanted to create something that was kind of haunting and this massive tribal chant, like a war cry that had this really eerie vibe sort of thing. So it was fun trying out new things, and finally when Lasse put his magic touch on it, we were really happy with how the vocals finally sounded in the final production.
Yeah, so this time around, I think the recording process was fairly different, because the song itself demanded a completely different overall production, vibe. And therefore, what we did is we spent a lot of time in pre-production. We did a couple of variations of the track, like I was mentioning. We also got a couple of, freelance mixing and mastering guys to give us their version of the mix, right? So when we did the pre-production, we sent it across to a couple of people. We wanted to see what they would come up with, so that we figure out sonically whether we're in the right place. It's only after that we commissioned Lasse when we recorded at Stained Class Productions. We did a complete tracking of the drums and the vocals at the studio. The guitars and the bass were done at home, in my small recording setup. And this time around, what we did is we ensured that we tried a couple of drum grooves at the studio itself. I mean, previously what we would do is we would just jam it out in the jam room, get the parts right, and then hit the studio. This time around, we spent a little more time in the studio. For good or worse, we ended up spending a little more money, but I think it was for the better, because a lot of these fills, a lot of these small, parts that Jared has now added, I think brings in a lot to the track, which wasn't present earlier. So yeah, then of course we sent the raw tracks to Lasse like we always do, And this time around, we gave Lasse, completely a free rein to sort of do whatever he wanted. We believe that he would be able to give us his version or his overall vibe, which I think worked really well for us.
The art was actually inspired by this old Viking torture method called Blood Eagle, where the arms of the victim are tied on like either side, and then their back is slowly hacked open with knives and axes, and then the lungs, once the ribs are broken, the lungs are taken out from the back and thrown over the person's shoulder, and then the flesh and the skin is stretched like from side to side and tied to each of the hands on either side, so it forms the image of an eagle with its wings spread and there's blood everywhere. So that's how the Blood Eagle thing comes together. Like, this image spoke to me was primarily because the artwork has a central figure, and which is sort of being Blood Eagle in a way, which is being torn apart by two sides. You could say it's being torn apart by two factions of the society, and the central figure does represent like a nation of sorts. But at the same time, the surrounding, which is kind of like degrading the individual, is also decaying and everything, and the face the character has is also kind of sickening, suggesting that, like, society itself is sick. It's just because it's being torn apart, that doesn't mean that it's rid of all its diseases and all its social ills that still exist out there. And eventually you kind of see the character itself disintegrating and becoming part of that sickly environment that it wants to escape, but now it's too late and the environment is taking over and it's very much part of that environment that it lives in. And to make matters worse, there's this saffron flame that is coming and engulfing everything, and that's going to burn everything to ashes. Why is this flame saffron? I don't think we need to answer that, but I think anyone following Indian politics would be able to add context to that image. Divided by Hate, it's definitely political. There's no beating around the bush about it. Whether you like it or not, it does have a political message. Whether you agree with the political angle of it is totally up to the listener. But yeah, it is mostly trying to point out divisive politics, and while living in India, it is very apparent that that's what the political climate does contain at the moment. But I think multiple people around the globe would probably relate with the lyrics and the kind of message, the political message the song has, because a lot of the countries around the world are facing very similar issues to what we are facing right now. And anyone who's like has a disdain for injustice and has a disdain for divisive politics and this hateful politics that we are seeing around the world, where it's gone to such ruthless extremes when it comes to like getting their way, like certain political factions getting their way and bullying their way around, like anybody would relate to it. I really don't want to talk about this because it was such an exhausting experience. It just brings back nightmares. It was not only physically and mentally exhausting, but I think there were a whole set of challenges which were mostly logistical. Also, we didn't have much of a crew with us, so the band was lugging all the equipment and everything that was like going around over there. So to lug the equipment, set it up, and then perform for the shots was excruciating. But thankfully, we had an amazing film crew with us, and who were super professional, and they were great at getting the shots that were required. Chintan had some really cool ideas about the video, and our director Shiva, he did a great job in kind of bringing that vision to life that we had as a band. We had certain references obviously in mind in terms of the video when we were shooting, and we knew we wanted it to be as epic as possible given the resources that we had to spend on it. And we were really happy with the final product that came out, man. Like regardless of all the pain and anguish and the complaining and bickering that the band was going through on that shoot day, it was all worth it. Like it was a 16-hour grueling shoot. I had a heat stroke the next day, but when we finally saw the final cut and the final edit of the video, it was all worth it. Like all the blood, pain, and tears were just totally worth it.
So immediate plans, I think number one would be to promote Divided by Hate to the fullest. I think it's something that we as a band lacked for quite some time. We wouldn't spend enough time promoting it, and typically the fans would take it and then either by word of mouth or something, the album or the EP would market itself. But we kind of felt that the music scene has changed quite a bit. There is a lot of attention to Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, and then of course your YouTube content. So we made it a point this time around to ensure that there is sufficient promotion. We of course did it completely independently. We didn't feel the necessity to sort of engage with a professional, also because it costs a lot of money, and that's what we did this time around. I think in the near future what we're looking to do is put out more material. I think that's something, even if it means that we'll dig into our savings, our personal savings, we might as well do that, because if you're going to make this a serious project and make this something that lasts a lifetime, then we might as well put some money behind that. Yeah, I mean, it's slightly unfortunate. It's slightly unfortunate that the music industry has changed so much that most bands don't survive off their music only. They'll have to look at other methods by which they can make money, and gigs and merchandise seem to be the only way that a band can make ends meet. Having said that, we have to embrace the fact that the scene is changing, and we can complain about it, but there's only that much we can do. These are all private entities which have, of course, profit on mind, and we're just products that they're looking to sell. And at the end of the day, it's the artist who's going to take a beating. I mean, even when the record labels were around, it's not that the artist got a fair share. It's just that the share seems to be depleting, and that's what's happening, year after year. So, I mean, for a band like ours, we are not dependent on the music for money, right? We have our own day jobs, we are professionals, and this is something we just do for passion and just to keep our fans engaged. So yeah, there is a little money that we spend, and that money, of course, is to create something which hopefully lasts for quite some time, and that's what we're hoping to do. If we do sort of make ends meet, that's fantastic. Even if we don't, I mean, we don't have a problem with that. It's only because we love what we're doing. I mean, this is heavy metal in India, right? It's death metal, thrash metal in India. I mean, you don't expect to make money out of it to make ends meet. I think we just need to be smart about it. Play more shows, do sell merchandise, probably do a tour, and that's typically how you're going to make some money or some return on investment. Is there something that needs to change? Yeah, I mean, obviously, if Spotify, Apple Music, and these guys sort of release their purses in favor of the artist, that would be ideal. But who are we to sort of dictate? I mean, if the artists come together and sort of make a request, I think that's the only way, because most big artists are with labels already, right? And the labels dictate it to the artists, and the artists are no one. There are hardly any artists who can sort of change the music scene as such. So until that happens, I don't see a possibility of it changing. So might as well embrace it and try and change your marketing structure, your format, and do whatever is necessary. If it means more singles, if it means lesser albums, so be it. I mean, embrace it and do as the fans please. At the end of the day, customer is king. So that's what it is at.
Isn't COVID-19 the most exciting thing about the music industry currently? Like how it shut everything down. But yeah, aside the jokes apart, like I think streaming live gigs or streaming live performances is something that we've been wanting to do, given the fact that you can't play too many shows now. But we definitely want to do it at a scale with like some really great production, so that it's just not a bunch of guys playing in some room. We want it to be like a cool experience that that people are watching. The last gig I saw was the one this Pakistani band Takatak had done. That was a pretty cool experience. It was a short gig, like about 45 minutes or so. And while it's not the same as going to a festival and meeting your friends, grabbing a drink or whatever, but it was still nice to just have a chat room there, because you still encounter a lot of people that I would otherwise meet at gigs and everything. So it was still nice, landing up at a space, you're interacting with the other person, and you're watching a band perform and things like that.
So one, exciting development in the music industry is the fact that a lot of younger artists are sort of surfacing, right? It's possibly because music and videos and artists are more accessible today, and that's something which is very, very exciting for a band like us, because we get to, if we tomorrow want to tour with a band, we can just sort of shoot an email out to one of these artists on YouTube and ask them if they would be interested in collaborating on a tour. It's something which is very, very exciting. I think this is a development which definitely will improve the overall standard of music, the overall the quality of music will definitely improve. It's something that we've been talking about for years, right? And there's never been a situation wherein bands across countries have been able to interact, discuss ways of marketing, discuss ways of reaching out to fans. I think that's very exciting. And things like, of course, Facebook, social media, I mean, like Instagram and stuff has been around since the Orkut days. It's only improving. I think all of that is happening for the better, and we've been embracing it. So for example, YouTube, we did this 360-degree video of a live a jam room performance of Tainted Soils. It's something which was very exciting. I mean, I would not have even imagined when we started off in 2006 that we would be doing something called a 360-degree video. I mean, it was something which was completely new, something fresh. And we wanted to sort of capture the essence of the band, and that's why we did the 360-degree video. And I think these are things which sort of excite the fans, and it's something that which is fresh, which is new, and I think we should just go with it and try and make the best use of it.